Well, good morning and welcome to the M&A Partners webinar on cloud accounting. My name is David Talbot. I'm a chartered accountant and I head up the business services team at M&A, having worked with M&A for over 20 years. So today I'm joined for our cloud accounting session by Pomfret and Gary Brown. Lily's been with M&A for 5 years and for the last couple of years has been learning and specializing in everything to do with QuickBooks. Last year she qualified as a QuickBooks Advanced Online Pro Advisor. And Gary, who's a member of our business services team, joined M&A in 2014. He's a qualified accountant specializing in software and IT functions and is also a Xero certified advisor. Now, earlier in the year, we presented a webinar on making tax digital. Today, we're having a quick look at cloud accounting. We're finding that more and more clients are ready to embrace the changes and benefits that can come from this new approach to accounting. So what are we covering today? Well, I'll give you a little bit of a background to cloud accounting, and we'll look at why cloud accounting is different. Before we look at QuickBooks Online, which will be led by Lily, Gary will then talk us through Xero and Receipt Bank, and I'll provide a quick update on making tax digital just to link in with the previous webinar, and also we'll look at embracing the change, what we might need to do for that. So the background. Well, we're probably all familiar with traditional desktop systems, whether they're Sage 50, QuickBooks, and so on, a whole raft of different systems that have been implemented in the past. These, of course, were a vast improvement over the old-fashioned manual systems or spreadsheets, which generally provided very easy access to management information. It did mean that data and software were on site, which you can take that as either a benefit or a downside, depending on your point of view. Pictorially, these tended to look like either a traditional PC standalone or perhaps linked to a file server. So what were the sort of problems that we had with traditional systems? And indeed, some of us are still having these problems. Software updates can be very time-consuming and can cause problems. Key people often can't access the information that they need to get to very easily. It's no good having all of the information locked away in a software system that people are not familiar with. The data often isn't as up to date as it should be, and we frequently find that the system is only working on one computer, again restricting access. And from our point of view, working with your accountant often means sending us backup copies of the data, which is not particularly secure. So pictorially, cloud systems, how are they different? Well, the server or the information is generally up in cloud storage, held in a secure location and connected through the internet, either from our traditional PC or from a vast range of different devices, from Macs and tablets and mobile phones. So what are the benefits of cloud accounting? Well, very briefly, it's available anywhere and any time. We can, as we've said, use different devices, Macs, PCs, tablets and phones, and we have immediate access to upgrades. We haven't got to worry about installing these ourselves. The features and functions that come through are put onto the servers for everyone to enjoy straight away. From a security point of view, a very relevant topic in the last few days, the data center security is probably a whole lot better than your own. If you think about your own backup procedures and your own security of physical security as well as electronic security on your system, whether it's a server or a standalone PC, very likely a data center has much better procedures in place. Another great benefit of cloud accounting is the ability to integrate with other apps. And two that we'll look at today will be bank feeds and invoice storage. And of course, because it's available to multiple people, it's very easy to collaborate with accountants. And that's providing great benefits for a lot of our clients. But why is cloud accounting any different to our other systems? Well, we can use bookkeeping processes very much the same as traditional methods, but the real value of using these systems is when the intelligence of the system is used. And I've put intelligence in inverted commas. It's a sort of artificial learning that we'll see demonstrated in a few minutes when we look at the systems themselves. Really, to get this benefit out of it, it needs a fresh look at your bookkeeping process. Things like bank feeds and scanning expense invoices, they can dramatically reduce data entry. And the time that your bookkeeping spends at the moment in doing this data entry can be much better used for other things. The systems will learn from your entries and also from the entries that other users on the platform are putting in. So it doesn't have to be on your own data set to benefit from that learning. So in pictures, a traditional bookkeeping process, maybe we're used to a very paper-driven system with checks being recorded, perhaps not nowadays in account books, but certainly on a traditional accounting system, and then finally reconciling them with bank statements. That type of process really should be superseded by a cloud-based one where the data is coming directly fed in from bank information and perhaps from scanning in a pile of purchase invoices there. So now we're going to turn to actually have a look at these systems. The first one we'll look at is QuickBooks Online, sometimes referred to as QBO, which is an easy access cloud accounting system. Then Gary will take us through Xero, which is another cloud system, perhaps with some fuller features in there. And we'll then take a look at Receipt Bank, which has the functions of being able to scan in purchase invoices and automate the data capture, as well as staff expenses can be captured from a mobile phone app. And this links, along with a lot of other applications, links to both QBO and Xero. And I'm happy to say that M&A are fully accredited in all of these systems. So I'm going to hand over now to Lily, who will take us through the first of these demos, looking at QuickBooks Online.
Morning, everybody. So we are just going to open up the QuickBooks demo company. So hopefully you can all now see that on your screen. As David nicely mentioned, everything is done instead of through a traditional system where you load it onto a computer. Instead, you can see here, we're just running through a website. So anything that has an internet connection, whether it's a phone, an iPad, a laptop, you can use and access this system through anything at all. So anyone who has QuickBooks Online, this is what they'll see when they log in. No matter what version you're on, no matter what your user rights are, you'll always see this home screen first. This first little box at the top is if you're new to QuickBooks, it will just prompt you to kind of go through some setup touches just to make sure that you're ready to start using the program to its full ability. But the bits underneath, these kind of reports you can see here, these are ones which are pre-standard. We can't edit them, unfortunately. But as a good snapshot from the very first time you open your program, they give you quite a lot of information. So for instance, this profit and loss one you can see here, all of these transactions are hyperlinked, and you can start to change all of the date ranges as well to make it a little bit more relevant for what you're trying to do. So you can see you get some preset options here, so we can start changing it to this year in general, and you can see the figures automatically update. We've got a slight difference as well between a dark line and a kind of checked line which is appearing. The dark line is transactions that have been fully processed. They're in your bank, they're affecting your profit and loss account, and they've been fully reconciled. The checkered items are telling you that you've got some transactions that need to be processed that are coming through from the bank feeds, and that this is how, when you process them all, how it might affect your data. So it's trying to give you a bit of a both scenario, really. The other two reports that you kind of get, the expenses and the income, again, you can see they're all hyperlinked, and you can change the date ranges on all of them too. So again, you just click the drop down and you can pick which one you want to look at. On these expense ones, the hyperlinking is really good, because if you click through, it will take you straight to the screen that shows you exactly what the transaction is that's giving you that figure. And from here, you're also able to drill down straight into the individual transaction. So if for any reason you needed to change anything, or you needed to review and say, oh, actually, it doesn't go to insurance, it needs to go to somewhere else, you can get to that transaction really easily. To then get back to our home screen, we just click the X, and then we just go back to home in the left-hand corner. So one of the other big features that David mentioned is this bank feed option and the intelligent kind of processing that it can do. So if I go into the bank feed on the home screen, this is how QuickBooks connects to the bank feeds. And this is it's not something that is just QuickBooks related. Xero does do this as well, a little bit different, but the premise is the same. The first time you log in, it will ask you to do some security information. So it will ask you for your username and your PIN codes and security, things like that. But once you've set it up once, you should just find that in the background, whenever you log in, these transactions will just continue to download for you. You can see just from this screen alone that there is a lot of kind of data entry that you can save on doing. So you can see it pulls through the date that it reads from the bank. It pulls through a description based on what the reference is or what it can read from the bank statement. If there's also an additional information about maybe a name of who you're paying or you're getting money from, it will try and bring that through as well. The other side, you can see it reads the amount. And then what it's trying to do in the middle is it's trying to work out, okay, where does it go in QuickBooks? So the bulk of the work is already done for us. We just need to allocate potentially VAT, and we need to give it a reference as to where it goes. So for instance, if we click on this air expense one, at the minute it's trying to pick up where you've put things historically, and it doesn't really understand at the minute. But what you can do is you can change through this drop down box of where it would like to go. So you can start typing, and if we say that actually it was travel related, it will change it. You're then able to select your VAT rate for there. So for instance, if we pick 0, it will ask you if you want to make it a default code. So again, it's trying to save data entry for you and do a little bit of an automated process. So we can click yes, we'd like default. What you can then do as well is you can add some additional information if you like. So in this box here, it's trying to read from the bank statement what it can get, but that's not always relevant. So for instance, if you've got a check, it will just be a check number. So you can type in this box, you can put more narrative, overtype it, you can do whatever you like. And to be perfectly honest, the more detail you can put in there, the better it's going to be for everybody. The final option you kind of get from this screen is that you can see at the bottom here, you've got a button that says add attachment. This is where the system will allow you, if you've got in a PDF format or you've taken a picture and it's stored on your device, you can add an attachment and add a copy of that invoice or receipt to your expense. This means that when we're looking at QuickBooks or you're looking at your system, you've got the expense and attached to it, we've got a copy of the physical invoice. It saves one question at the year end, and from an accounting point of view, everything is in one place. You do still have to obviously keep the paperwork, but if it's all on the system, it's all in one place at the end of the day. So once you're happy with the information, you might not have to change very much at all. To put it into your system, all you have to do is click the add button over here on the right. Once we select that, you can see the transaction is gone, it's been put through in QuickBooks, it's in the bank account, and any VAT has been recorded. The other thing that David mentioned earlier was the intelligent recognition that it can start to do. And that's where you can see with these kind of green situations here, and also with the invoices at the top. What QuickBooks is trying to do with these is it's trying to read the information that's come through and try and match it to something that is already in your system. So in this case, you can see we've had some money received from a customer, and it's read that the customer is called Admin Co, and it can see in our system we have a customer set up, we raised an invoice and it was for the same amount. So QuickBooks is in reading your information and it goes, okay, I think these are the same transactions. We can match them off against each other. If you're happy with that, then obviously you just go, yes, that is the right invoice. It's the right customer. You click match. And again, you can see the transaction's gone. It's in your accounts. The customer balances have been updated and you can move on to your next data entry. So you can already see there's a lot of time-saving tools in here. It's not just bank accounts that can be fed. So at the minute we're in the bank account, but you can see there's also credit cards that can go through. It can also connect to PayPal accounts, deposit transaction accounts. QuickBooks themselves say they connect to about 95% of accounts, both UK and foreign. So chances are we'll be able to kind of get it connected for you. Gary will show the Xero version of bank feeds as well, because it's not just exclusive to QuickBooks. Another area that we kind of wanted to just discuss was the reporting function. So because all of your information is already in one online system, some of the reports in QuickBooks are really quite powerful and very intelligent. So there's lots of preset reports. You kind of get between 40 and 60 depending on what level of subscription you take, and all of them can be fully customizable. So one of the good benefits is that you can run any report to any date range you like. Previous systems would kind of restrict you to only being able to run at a year end or a month end date, but this system will let you go to any date that you would like to. You can see in the list there are some preset ones already, but there is also the custom one and you can pick whatever you like. So just to kind of demonstrate the powerfulness of these reports, if we say that we'd like to look at last year, and if we click run, every report has an option to customize, which is up here in the right hand corner. You can see in here you get a lot more options as well. So in the rows and columns, you can start to say, okay, well, how do we want to actually make this report a little bit better for us? So one of the good things is you can actually add a lot of comparative information. So if we wanted to say, okay, let's compare this year's figures against last year's, and we'll have the differences shown in pounds. If you save and you run the report, you can see we now get a little bit more information. It's given us some here. It's showing us if we had some figures for last year, it would show us the difference in the middle, but you can see we've got a change down the side. So if you're interested in looking at key areas of where there are potential cost savings, you can, very easily be able to see everything and how number-wise that actually stacks up. As we've seen before, all of these as well are drillable. So you can click into any of these expenses and it will show you the transactions. And then again, you can click down into the individual transactions from here and get right into the nitty-gritty of your information. All of the reports as well, once they've been customized, can be saved so that if you find a report you like, you don't have to rerun all the customization every time. In the right-hand corner, you've got this button that says Save Customization. This is where you can give it its own name. You can decide who you can want to share it with. And at least then every single time you get one looking how you like, you can just go to it with a one-click option. It is also really easy, as we've seen from looking at some of these transactions, to make individual transactions in QuickBooks if you're not doing bank feeds. So for instance, you've got this plus button at the top, and this is kind of the hub of all the information you need. So you can see in here, you've got the option to put some bills in for suppliers. Your customer invoice screen is fed through from here as well. And the actual data entry screen itself is fairly nice and simple. It's very easy to kind of navigate through. So you select your customer, it pulls all the information through about the billing address for you, what your set terms are. All you've kind of got to fill out is what you're billing them for, put a little bit of a description through. You can set defaults. So in this case, you can see by picking one service, it defaults some information to us. It puts a description. It also defaults a rate and a VAT code. So again, automating the processes for us. So all you need to do is kind of then put a little bit more narrative in if you need to kind of bulk it out a little bit, or if you needed to, you can just change it and add some additional information if it was a little bit different. So if you'd actually agreed a different rate with this client, you can just change it and all the numbers will flow through. One of the kind of added features as well of being on an online system is that you get the option to do what they call a save and send. This is where if you've set the customer up with an email address, you can send the invoice direct from the system. It will then track. What you'll see is on the bottom of the invoice is just here, you get a little box tracking the individual transaction. So you'll see when the email was delivered, when it was opened, when it was read, deleted. You can kind of see a good history of where you are with your transactions. So it's just giving you a little bit more information than just popping the invoice out on an email and then not knowing whether it's been received or not. QuickBooks does also handle VAT. It can also run payroll as well. So if you did want to talk about whether or not you think it's relevant for your business or would like a little bit more information on a particular area, do feel free to get in touch and we can kind of tailor it to your business. So what I'm going to do now is hand over to Gary and he's going to talk you through Xero.
Thank you, Lily. Yes, hello. I'm now going to give you a bit of an overview of Xero. So it's, as Lily said, a lot of the things that both of these programs do is very similar. So I'm not going to go through all the same kind of things as Lily's done, but just to kind of give you a flavour of the differences of what you can expect if you chose the Xero route. So as you can see on the screen at the moment, we've got what's called the dashboard, which is the sort of the opening screen when you go into Xero. Tries to sort of give you some overview information and quick links through to the most relevant things when you first open it up. So on the left hand side here, we've got a view of any bank accounts that we might have within our data. A little graph of how the balance has moved over time. A further graph down here, cash in and out. So sort of some headline information there. On the right hand side, we've got this account watch list area. So there's a particular nominal code that is important to your business and you want to be able to, at a glance, keep an eye on it, see if it's spiked for any particular reason and drill down into it. You can summarize any particular codes you want in there. Further down, we've then got invoices owed to us and bills we need to pay. So the system is looking at any debtors or creditors you've got, graphing them based on the due dates of those invoices. So you can immediately see what we might have overdue, what you need to be looking at either chasing or paying shortly. Just to say also that this dashboard is editable, so if there's any particular areas that you don't want to see, if you want to move things around to the top, you can customize it to be exactly what is most useful for you or for your business. So as Lily said, bank feeds is really the power of these online systems, and I'm just going to show you the sort of the differences of how Xero approaches that. If I go into reconcile here, we'll see Xero's reconciliation screen. And the way this works, on the left-hand side here, we've got all the statement lines that it is imported from the bank. So they've come directly through the bank feed, and it's pulled in the information that it's seeing from your bank account. And then on the right-hand side is where it wants to match it to things within your data. So as you can see, these first couple of items on here, we've spent some money and it's found a match of a payment within your data, and it's saying it's all gone green. It's recognized based on the name, the amount, that this is going to be for the same amount, and all you need to do is click OK, and that matches it off. Similarly, here's some money we've received and it's matched it to an invoice that we've raised. Now, not everything is always going to have a simple match like that. Sometimes you're going to have to put in manually put in the information. So, for example, we've got a banking fee on here. Now, that's obviously not going to be an invoice that you've put into the system, but you can simply populate 3 fields: who it is, what it's for, and why. And what you can see on this one is we've previously had bank fees go through here. We've put this information into these 3 boxes, and then a similar entry has come through on the bank feed again, and as we talk about the intelligence of the system, it's recognized that that looks very similar to the one we had before, perhaps not the same amount, but a similar name, a similar time of the month, and it's populated these fields for us. Obviously, we could change them if it wasn't quite right, but otherwise it's simply one click to process that through. Also, we can apply rules. So, for example, we've got a rule here about 7-Eleven. So it's looking for payments of certain amounts that are going through with a certain name, and it is automatically trying to apply that rule. Again, we've got the option to override that should it not be applicable, but otherwise, again, it's just a simple click to say, yes, we're going to apply that rule and post it to the same place that we do for all other entries of that type. If they aren't coming up quite as quickly as that, so for example here we've spent some money, but it was actually paying 2 different invoices, so Xero hasn't been able to automatically make a match on that amount because there isn't a single invoice for that amount. But we've got the option to do a find and match. What that then shows is all unmatched items that are currently within the system. We have search buttons here, so if I type in something to search on, it could be the amount or some part of the name. I've searched for Smart, it's filtered it down, shown us any invoices for this Smart agency, and we can tick. Then there we go. As you can see, it's then turned green, it's matched the total, and we can reconcile that off. So that really shows there's various different ways that you can process the information that's coming through, and as I say, the more you use it, the more it recognizes what you do regularly, and as you set up any rules, it really does take the pain out of reconciling the bank and makes the process nice and quick and simple. Another nice feature in Xero that I'd like to point out, obviously we've got all sorts of reports in the same way that that QBO does, but a nice one just to show you now is called the management report. If we go into there, it's a preset selection of various different pages of information. So we've got a profit and loss, a balance sheet, receivables, payables, these kinds of things, and we can customize what things we want to include in there. But we can set that up, have that as a excuse me, a management report template, and then perhaps once a month or whatever period we want to do, we can come into it and run it. We can publish it through, perhaps change the title, dates, things like that, customize if we want to remove anything from it, but otherwise we can send that out as a PDF. And you get something like this, which is topped and tailed nicely, gives you a nice looking report that you could easily take into a meeting and looks nice and professional. And as I say, this can be tailored exactly as you want it to be, but it's just a nice way of collating a lot of information quickly in a consistent format that's going to be potentially useful. Another nice feature, anywhere within Xero, if you've got lists of items of some degree, so perhaps if we look at our invoices awaiting payment, we've got an export option. So we can export all these things out to Excel, as you can see here, and it's come out in Excel with all the information associated with that. So if we need to do any further analysis, if we wanted to use this data anywhere else, it's nice, easy, we can edit it as we see fit from there. And as I say, this applies throughout the program. So if we were perhaps in account transactions and we needed to do some additional analysis maybe of our sales figures, if we go into sales for the month, we've got export down here and we can export as Excel. And again, that's taking it out, giving us a nice little report, and we could play around with that as we needed to. So it really allows you to manipulate the data as you need to. So moving on now to look at Receipt Bank and how that integrates with both Xero and QuickBooks. So if I flick to it here, as David mentioned, it's invoice storage and also processing. So what it can do is you can send purchase invoices into the system, and it will intelligently read them, look at the image of that invoice, and extract information out of it to save you time on the processing. So for example, if I pull up here, I've scanned in some invoices, send them through into one big file. So you can see here we've got a BT phone bill, another couple of invoices. So we've got them all in one big file. So typically we'd have had to gone through and manually enter those into our system. But with Receipt Bank, we can go in, we can add it, we simply select the user that is adding it, and we can either browse to them or drag and drop them into here. And as I say, even though that's a file with multiple items on it, it recognizes it. It says it's successfully uploaded. And if we go back to our inbox, we will now see that they've gone into processing. Now this takes a very real amount of time, but you don't have to sit and wait around for it. So it will do that in the background, and you can go off and come back later on and see what's there. So ready for this, I'd done that with some other invoices. I had another set of 3 invoices that I sent through, and you can see we've got 3 new invoices awaiting here. So if I go into one of these, we can see, so on the left hand side here we have the image of the invoice, and on the right hand side here's the information that Receipt Bank has extracted. So none of this has been manually entered, so it's looked and it's worked out that it's an invoice. Obviously it's read the date, so it's seen the date from here, read that, read the invoice number off the invoice, worked out who the supplier is, and read all of the financial information, the total amount and the VAT. So that's all been calculated for you. But the really clever part is then the category. So you can see here it's looked at it, and it's looked at this invoice. It will then look at if you've had invoices of this from this supplier before and what you've categorized them to, or if you've never used them before, it will look at any other users of Receipt Bank and what they have categorized this as, and make an intelligent suggestion based on your chart of accounts, your account codes, as to what it thinks is most likely to go there. So in this instance, it's looked at it and gone, this looks like IT and software consumables, and as you can see, it is a hosted mailbox, so that is what it would be. You can, of course, change any of these amounts if for any reason it did pick up the wrong information or you knew that it needed to be slightly changed. You could edit it. That's all free to do. But for the most part, it is taking all of the data entry out of that. When we're happy with it, we can simply click on Publish, and that will send it through into our linked data set. In this case, it's going to be Xero, but as I say, it does also work with QBO. Here's another example of another one. So again, completely different layout of the invoice. It doesn't matter, it's still managed to look at it, it's found the relevant information, it's found the invoice number, the date, and it's looked for a category and found that it's cleaning. So we'll publish this one through as well, and a third one here that we sent through, and we'll see those come into Xero shortly. Now, not only can we do our purchase invoices, we can also do this for expenses. So there's a mobile app for Receipt Bank, which you or your staff can have on their phones, and they can use it to take a quick snapshot of receipts, just like this one here from Currys, and it will then upload into the system. And again, it reads it intelligently. So despite the fact that it's just a little receipt with barely any information on there, really, when you think about it, it manages to read off the date, it reads off the supplier, and again, it reads off the relevant amounts, tax amounts, and puts a guess as to what the category is going to be, again, based on that intelligent learning. Just to show another example here, so an even smaller one, it's a bit crumpled up, the image isn't quite straight, it doesn't matter, the system is clever enough to work that out. It can read off the amounts and work out it's from Shell, it should be motor expenses, and it's put the amounts through there. So a nice easy way of doing that. It comes through onto this dashboard screen, as you can see here, and we can see the user that uploaded it. So if we did have multiple different staff using this, we could then summarize an expense report collating for the different users and send that through into the account software as an individual item. So if we go back to Xero now, we have the moment of truth to see whether our invoices have flown through. And there we can see. So we've got it set, so they've come in as awaiting approval. We've got the 3 invoices and all the information that Receipt Bank extracted. And we can also see here, we've got the original invoice attached. So, as Lily mentioned earlier, the benefit of having the digital version of that stored there, if anyone is looking at this, your accountant is looking at it, wants to check back to the original invoice, it's all stored there, all in one place. And it basically was a couple of clicks and we got all the way through. And all we need to do now is say, yep, we're happy with that information, approve, and that is now saved and stored within our Xero data. Right, I'm just going to pass you back to David now, who's going to talk about something else.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Gary, for that. I'm sure we can all agree that it's quite enlightening to see how much information can be extracted automatically, and the sheer amount of data entry that we might be saved. Okay, well, this is the big question, isn't it? We've seen the power of these things, and the immediate question from some people is, well, what about cost? When we consider costs, the first thing we really need to bear in mind is that traditional software perpetual licenses are becoming very rare these days. Certainly, I know that Sage 50 are trying to phase out the perpetual licenses. Some people may still have those, but a lot of traditional systems are now moving to a monthly subscription basis. And actually, when we compare the costs of our traditional accounting systems, their monthly subscriptions with cloud ones, we see that actually the cloud ones do look increasingly competitive. Typically from around £10 a month. I mean, obviously it depends on which system you're adopting and whether you're adopting Receipt Bank in coordination with the main accounting system, but that's the starting point. What we are finding, however, is that it's increasingly popular for many of our clients to build the cost of the subscriptions into their monthly fee for accounting services. And that way you can maximize the savings, because we, as the accredited advisors for the different applications, are able to pass on some savings to you by adopting the systems through our platform. Should just briefly mention other apps. I'm not going to go into any great detail on this. There are, of course, thousands of different apps that have been developed to link with these cloud systems. One that we found quite useful with a few clients is called Futurely, formerly known as Crunchboards, which was perhaps a little easier to say and spell. This takes a new look at providing a digital dashboard. It does forecasting and reporting combined, and certainly we've had some businesses that have found this very useful in helping to plan business growth. It links, as many of these things do, with both QuickBooks Online and Xero. I did say we'd have a quick update on making tax digital. Really, the big news there is that because of the forthcoming general election, the making tax digital provisions have all been cut from the finance bill. So there was a lot of relief all round. However, we believe that it's still the intention that draft regulations will be published over summer 2017. Obviously, we don't yet know the flavour of the government that will be in place at that time, and how much of the original provisions will still be included in there. An indication was, however, in the spring budget that MTD was postponed for a year to 2019 for self-employed and landlords with a turnover below the VAT threshold. One thing we can be sure of is that it's a direction that HMRC and the government are keen to pursue, and systems such as Receipt Bank really are going to play a key part in making tax digital. So to summarize, the sort of questions we really should be asking ourselves following this is, does your present system provide what you need efficiently? And perhaps acknowledging that really to fully benefit from cloud accounting, you need to review the bookkeeping process. We have seen clients who've adopted a cloud accounting system, but have stuck with their old processes and really haven't fully taken advantage of all of the intelligent learning that hopefully you've seen in the demos from Lily and Gary. So I would encourage you to talk to M&A about which systems might work best for you. We try to look after a range of different systems. We're not just a one-shop stop. looking for what might be best for your particular situation. Thank you very much for listening. We've now got an opportunity for any questions that might have come through. And I know that was quite a brief overview, but if we've got any questions that have come along. Yeah, there's someone has asked, can they customize the look of invoices? Perhaps just like Lily, just to talk to us about how that can happen with QuickBooks. Thank you.
So on QuickBooks, you can customize the invoices. You can add your own logo. You can adjust the color schemes. You can also set up different template versions. So if you wanted, say, your estimates to be one color scheme and have a different look to say how your invoices do, you can actually arrange that so that you can select the template appropriately. My understanding is that Xero can do the same. I was going to double check with Gary. Yeah, he's given me the thumbs up. So again, Xero is all customizable and you can kind of make it how you like it for your business.
Another question we've got is on the VAT schemes, about VAT schemes that Xero could deal with. I wonder if, Gary, you can just tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, sure. Within Xero, you can do the accrual scheme, the cash scheme, or the flat rate scheme. Any of those it will cope with and allow you to prepare and submit your returns straight to HMRC all through the software. So yeah, it's capable of dealing with all of those.
Okay. Thank you, Gary. A further question about how many users you can have. I know something that's quite pertinent with traditional software systems. Whenever you need an additional user, there's the question of having to get more licenses and more cost. Would someone like to just answer that? Oh, Gary's going to take that one. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. With both the systems, your subscription covers for an unlimited amount of users. There is a slight limit with QuickBooks as to how many can be logged in at once, being 5. But yeah, both of them, your subscription allows you any number of users. So no matter how many people throughout the organization that are going to need to have access to the data, that's all fine. Okay,
that's great. Well, I think if there are any more questions, then please let us have emails afterwards. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for your attention. I realise that this was quite a brief look, but hopefully it's given a bit of an insight into what a different approach cloud accounting can bring and can achieve for your accounting systems. There will be, as we close this, you will have a feedback screen on the webinar platform. We will also be emailing you with a brief feedback form just on the content of the webinar, and also give us a bit of a steer about future webinars that we might run that might be of interest to you. So if you have any need any further information or any other questions, then please let us know. But otherwise, thank you very much for listening.